will call the public hearing to order, and I will ask Cindy, our town clerk, to please read the
Legal notice?
notice. Yeah.
Thank you. In accordance with provisions of Chapter 7, Section 5 of the Charter, the Town of Plainville, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by Plainville Town Council at 7 p.m. on Thursday, March 7th, 2024, in the council chambers of the Municipal Center to hear public comments on the budget for the Town of Plainville for fiscal year 2025 as proposed by the town manager, dated at Plainville, Connecticut, this 28th day of February 2024.
Okay, thank you. And now, before we open the floor to public comment, we'll ask the town manager, Michael Paulus, to do an overview and presentation on the proposed budget, manager's budget.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to walk to the podium and present from there. Good evening. That should be a little bit better. So essentially, I'm going to start out and run through my budget presentation, which is the same budget presentation I gave on Monday, and then I'll hand off to the superintendent for his presentation on the Board of Education budget. So with that, I will begin. The challenges we face twofold: inflation and our hiring employees and retention. And obviously, number two is ongoing, and not that number one isn't so bad, it is. And you'll see in a later slide that some major headwinds with inflation that we've had in the last 2 years that make it difficult for us to keep pace. But on number two, the hiring employees and retention, I know that unfortunately I had informed you that even this week we see 3 individuals leaving Plainville to do other things and to further their careers. And I'm not sure, we'll go through our exit interviews as we always do to try and learn a little bit more. But again, it's always in our mind that we're trying to do what we can to retain employees and recruit employees, qualified, high caliber individuals that we think this is a great place to live, work, and play, and we hope to continue to make that case. But nonetheless, there are issues that we have to deal with on an ongoing basis. But inflation is really a headwind that's really tough to overcome. So with that, I'll start with the basic overview of the town proposed budget. It's $72 million, just over $72 million, which represents an increase of $4,167,988, or 6.12%. Whoops, sorry. Got to head the right way. The next slide is the breakdown of the increase and what that impact may be. Right at the top of the list there, you'll see that it equates to a blended tax rate of 1.52 mils, or 4.83%, and that we're over the motor vehicle cap at 3246. So the real estate and personal property will have to target at 33.01, and the blended rate will be 32.94, and that's 1.52 mils over the current mill rate of 31.42. You see the lower half of the slide, we indicate where we've been for the last 6 years, back to fiscal year 2019. We had a question the chairman had asked, as you see for 2023, the mill rate reduction there, 3.92 mils, or 11 6.34%. The chairman had asked about a slide that we're working on to prepare for Monday as we begin the budget discussions, looking at a pre-reval and post-reval, and also looking ahead to what we think a mill rate increase of this magnitude would be in terms of dollars and cents based on an average rate that Councilman Gettleman had asked for. And so we'll try to incorporate those slides to give you sort of a sense of where they are based on a single-family home, based on two-family, three-family condos. We'll kind of break that down for you and have that incorporated for Monday. So what we have is Board of Education operating budget of $2,407,638, representing a 5.59% increase. Town government at just over $1,085,350 for 5.17%. Capital projects $425,000. A big increase there only because we've only had $75,000 in there in the current budget, and we're moving in the direction of trying to structurally change some of the budget with respect to debt service and capital. So that number looks like a big increase, but it's in an effort to try to sustain us long term, I think, in my opinion, and I think it's the right move, and we can't do it all in one fiscal year, one move. It felt to be better over a 2-year period. So we are making strides to get to a higher target for capital. The same with debt service, indicating $250,000 change. We reduced it $500,000 the prior year and trying to get back to that, but in a two-step process, two-year fiscal cycle. So we've got a total of $4,167,988 for 6.12%. So if you just look at it graphically and a pie, the Board of Ed obviously is in blue at $45,479,435. Town government 22,078,890. Debt service at $4.1 million and capital at $500,000. Expenditure increases, a further graph here. Take a look at, again, 6.11% for fiscal year, 6.12. The average increase over 12 years is just over 2%. Next is the inflation rate that I had mentioned and the expenditure increases. The left column or first column inflation rate, notice that 2023 was a 7%, 2024 was 6.4%. Proposed 2025, we're looking at 6.27. So our expenditures at 6.12 coming in just under inflation or just about inflation rate. And it's just, again, it's a tough headwind for us to overcome, but I think we're doing the best way we can, and hopefully that things will stabilize over time. Next is a further breakdown of the general government summary of expenditures, and general government at the top. 214,307 represents a 7.7% increase, mainly in personnel, and we've got some additional pickups that we had in terms of positions that were a little bit higher than the rate individuals that we had. We've changed. One of the changes we picked up was the payroll manager. One of the things we're looking at in the budget is also a planning tech position as well. Public safety, 5.5% increase. Public works, 3%. Health and Human Services, 2.39%. Civic and Culture at 8%. That reflects a salary adjustment that we had to make within the rec department. We have a employee fringe benefits increases that I think, anticipated, but probably not that high. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room there with the fringe benefits, and we're just again trying to keep a lid on it when we can. But much of it is out of our control. So the next slide on the major drivers, personnel, as you can imagine, is always the big ticket item. Paying for salaries. We have the general wage increases and payroll adjustments all factored in there. Police retirement is a big cost center in addition to the municipal all retirement plans that we are obligated to fund. Health insurances, maintenance contracts. As I mentioned on Monday, maintenance contracts are some of the increases related to security cameras added for town hall and library. Other contractual, we're looking at labor costs there and increases for the labor contracts that are coming up. But we did have a win in the gas, diesel, heating, fuel, electricity with a decrease of $71,000, which is nice. And basically our overall general increase, again, as I mentioned, is $1,085,350. Next is the grand list comparison. I did allude to that a little bit in terms of the reval. As you can see, in 2020 or 2019, grand list growth was 542,000. 2020 was 586,000. So we were looking at about a 1% growth annually. The outlier is obviously the year of 2021 and the reval year. And then with the addition of Americold coming online, and also this year, revenue over $1 million with personal property that we picked up for Americold. It was the motor vehicle reduction that took a drag on our grand list growth, but it was nearly 2%, which is healthy, and I'm happy to report that that's something we hope to sustain if we can, just to help us out in terms of the offset for increases. So it was a nice surprise, and the real estate was still healthy at nearly 1%. So between the real estate and the personal property, drove our revenue up to almost $1 million. So next is just a slide on use of fund balance. And as you recall, we have $1.4 million budgeted, and my recommendation again is to use the same number. Although conversations around that we can certainly undertake about future use of fund balance, and the health and trajectory of our fund balance remains stable and steady. But as a practice, I think there should be discussion around trying to ratchet that down in future budgets. Next, estimated direct revenue. As I mentioned, the grand list growth was the real driver for us, the real winner, at nearly 2%, which generated over $1 million. License and permits helped at $50,000. Taxes, use of money is in terms of investment, intergovernmental, with primarily driven by ECS and the ECS formula and funds coming from the state. So we were able to close the gap on the increase to the tune of $1,666,508. So that leaves us, just brief math, simple math, $4,167,988. Taking our revenue of $1,666,508, our target difference is $2,501,480, and that is where the calculation of 1.52 mils comes into play. Our debt service, $21,295,000. General government makes up $10 million. Board of Education, $11,295,000. Debt payments. Total debt service principal and interest of $4,180,350. Town government, you see, is $948,063. Board of Education, $1.7 million. Available to us will be $1.4. Moving into what we anticipate will be a building project with the middle school. We'd estimated a premium on a $10 million issue at $400,000. And an estimated $10 million interest-only payment, saving us $250,000. So that we were looking at available for transfer to debt management fund as $1,620,312. So we're on track. We're managing the debt service very well, and can certainly absorb the middle school project or any other projects that come along. But it's certainly something that we have to keep an eye on in terms of managing fiscally responsibly. Capital, CIP, proposed expenditures of $1,522,632, $1.5 million in general. This is lower than the $1.9 million that we had done last year. And again, it was just an effort to try to pare back the requests, recognizing that this is a tough year, and trying to get numbers a little bit lower, not to take away from any of the requests. We have some great needs, and I think, as the chairman alluded to as well, the last meeting on Monday, to talk about a further conversation around capital improvement and what's coming down the pipe, so to speak. I think we've done our best in terms of keeping this in check, but still trying to do the things that we need to do. When things fall apart, we do our best to repair and keep large ticket items like plow trucks and mowers and big capital ticket items, serviceable and on the road. But it just comes to a point they just reach the end of their life cycle, and we have to bite the bullet. And so we're doing the best that we can. But this is how it breaks down in terms of the recommended revenues. Use of CIP fund balance of $250,000. General fund at $500,000, and the unassigned fund balance of $772,632 gets us to $1,522,632. So that's just a quick summary of the capital improvement plans. Next is CIP and town and Board of Education breakdown of where that money is being allocated. Board of Education has the Chromebooks and the laptops, and most everything else is on the general government side. For roadways, as I mentioned, these six-wheel dump trucks with plows, police building improvements, fire radios. It's just things that we need to purchase, and over time, I think we'll be able to address more with a look and study of CIP analysis and strategic planning. So I think the picture will get a little bit brighter as we move along. And that's, I think, where I end. And I will turn it over to our superintendent for his presentation. Brian, it's all yours.
Thank you. So at the risk of creating a deja vu moment, I thought I would highlight a few things and move through this pretty quickly. I am yours, so if there's things you think you want to go back and do again, don't hesitate to ask for that. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Brian Reese, Superintendent of Schools, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm joined here by Foster White and Crystal St. Lawrence, and they are my Board of Education members, and I appreciate their support. So we talked about a lot of this the other night, so I'm going to bump through to just making a few points, and again, I'm happy to come back if you like. So one of the slides we just went through was a brief slide about the fact that we're right in the middle, just to the low side of when you compare our costs per student. So when asked, where do we fall? We fall right in the middle to having on the less expensive side. The pie chart in front of you is just a brief synopsis, and it really just points out that in our budget, well over 80% of our budget is focused on just salaries and benefits. The staff we're putting in front of kids is the primary expense in our budget. We have talked about the fiscal cliff a little bit here, and there's two places to focus on the fiscal cliff for us. During the fiscal, using the ESSER funds to get through that time after COVID, there were a number of capital projects that were used, the funds were used for. But when we found ourselves in a position of needing special education positions to support kids directly, we also tapped the ESSER funds, which I think made sense at the time because we don't know. Sometimes changes in enrollment for our students with special needs changes what we need. So there was always the opportunity, they do change over, there was the opportunity that those positions might actually be fairly temporary as well. So it made sense. To looking forward and knowing this was on its way, we did avoid hiring 3 positions at the beginning of this year that were currently in the budget for this year, which helps us with our fiscal cliff. And we also have put in this budget removing 3 additional positions from the budget using attrition. So as people retire, we will plan to not fill 3 additional positions. So we start this budget for FY25, 6 positions down. Just to give you kind of the ESSER in a quick picture, it's about $1 million that we had in this year's budget. So going forward to address that, we have the $184,000 that we, by not hiring people at the beginning of this year, those 3 positions. And then we have the 3 positions that are certified positions that come up to about $295,000 that we're not planning to hire. That gets us down to more than half of our ESSER cliff. And then we still have the $585,000, which is primarily paraprofessionals for our students with special needs and a couple of other special needs support systems. So the budget increase just overall, if you look at look at context for inflation and you look at where we are, our actual budget increase is right around just under the inflationary trend over the last few years. So that's about where we are with a 5.59. This slide was just a quick reminder of, if we did budgeting and we didn't put the money back to the town every year, and I'm not suggesting that's a good way to go. I appreciate the current system in place in Connecticut. But it gives you an idea in that 630 budget balance that things could look very differently from predictability if some of that money gets spread out through the years as we go forward. It could change the percentage increase quite significantly. And then I want to move on directly to kind of what is this increase? 5.59. Predictably, 3.54% of that 5.59 is salaries, 1.29 is benefits, and really the next decent sized number is tuition, special education tuition, which is something we've seen a trend that we've under budgeted slightly, not sure what to anticipate. That number can change quite a bit over time very quickly. And so we thought it was time to address that tuition and transportation number because it appears it needed an adjustment by at least $100,000. So that is where your increase comes from. And then just to give you that comparison point again, because we always want you to feel like you have context, and now you have the presentation sitting in front of you, which I feel a little bit better about tonight. But you can kind of see where people have come in, and it doesn't matter whether it's a district of wealth or a district struggling. This year is a tough year. Between ESSER and inflation and a number of things, it's a tough year for many of us, looking at percentages that we're not used to talking about. So I know tonight is primarily about questions, so. Oh. And apparently that is the end of the slideshow. It's not moving forward. I know there's another one. So if there's anything you thought I went too quickly over, I'm happy to back up. But I know I didn't want you to feel like you had to listen to the same presentation again. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Well, thank you to both of you for your presentations. And now, this is a public hearing, and anyone from the public that would like to comment, it's okay if you didn't sign up ahead of time. You can raise your hand and come up now. I guess we won't have public comment then.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
But,
We did receive an email. Is it okay if I read that into the record?
Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
Okay. It's from Amy Porteous, 11 Cleveland Street. Dear Town Council, I am writing to show my support for the proposed Board of Education budget as presented by the superintendent. I am asking you to please leave the budget as it was presented. I feel it would be a detriment to our students and staff if further cuts were made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for doing that, Councilman Genneman. Okay, one last call. Any further public comment? Okay, I guess that we don't have any. Were there any questions that the town council members wanted to ask? Looking at the presentation another time. Okay, so I guess we're good. Okay, there's a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is adjourned.